Something I love to do in my own piano studio is use Kodály rhythm syllables to teach rhythm to especially my youngest students, but really all of my students. And so I get a lot of questions from teachers about how we use these syllables and why. So I want to share 4 common questions that I get about these syllables in this video today. I've already gone through the pronunciation, which is the most common question I get. So we'll leave a link to that video below if you're interested in exactly what syllables I use for different note values and the actions I do to go along with those. But if you're interested in some other aspects of this rhythm system, then stay tuned. The first question a lot of teachers will ask, of course, is why we should even use this at all. The more traditional method of teaching rhythm is to use metric counting. And Kodály syllables are a different way of looking at this, for most teachers at least. So why do we use them? Well, the reason I love to use the rhythm syllable system in my studio is because it feels more natural, especially for my youngest students. It is easier for them to pronounce those syllables, and therefore easier to say them, and remember them and embed them in their brain. And that's really what we want for rhythm patterns in the beginning. Yes, we need that understanding that comes with metric counting, but actually we don't need that analytical process to do with rhythm in the beginning always. What we actually want is for students to feel them, to innately feel the rhythms, and rhythm syllables are better for that. I use Kodály syllables mostly because it's what I'm most comfortable with and it's what I've always used. There are other rhythm syllable systems out there and I encourage you to get curious and try out other ones as well. This is a little issue, but it's one that comes up a lot, so I wanted to cover it. What do we do when it comes to tied notes? Well, what you need to remember is that when you're using Kodály syllables or a similar rhythm system, you're going to be counting or saying the rhythm per unit, per note. And if you keep that in mind, then tied notes are actually just one note plus the other note, whatever that combined note value is. So for example, if you have a crotchet, or a quarter note tied to an eighth note or a quaver, those two tied together are the same thing as a dotted crotchet or a dotted quarter. So you just pronounce them as if that's what it says, because it's the same thing. It doesn't matter where they are in the bar, since we're not doing this metrically across the bar, we're doing it unit by unit. So for me, that note would be tum. Whatever it is for you for that dotted note value, that's what you say there. Okay, so we're using this rhythm system. When do we change? When do we graduate onto metric counting? Well, as you may have guessed from the way I said that, that's not the way I see it. I don't think we graduate to metric counting. I think our students can really benefit from having both of these systems side by side. So even for my adult students, I like them to understand Kodály syllables and metric counting so that they have both to call upon. So depending on the situation, they'll use one or the other. For my adult students, they meet metric counting right at the start of their piano lessons alongside Kodály syllables, and we talk about both systems and use them interchangeably in different scenarios. For my youngest students, I would say they're meeting metric counting, my preschoolers, maybe a year or 2 into their studies, and then everything in between. The older they are, the faster they're going to meet metric counting, because it is really a mathematical construct and you need to be able to understand it. It shouldn't just be something that students are parroting back to you, in my opinion. So I want students to be able to understand it, and whenever that is, that's when they're going to meet metric counting. Now, after they meet it, we're still going to oscillate between the two. And if students are having particular troubles with metric counting, we have those Kodály syllables and we can make that transition more gradual and get used to both systems side by side. This is one of the biggest apprehensions when it comes to introducing your students to rhythm using something like Kodály syllables. Isn't this going to make it harder for them to learn metric counting down the track? It's not. In my opinion, and in my experience, it's never made it harder for students to learn metric counting. Some students still struggle with counting 1 and 2 and because it is awkward and it does require some mathematical thinking. But they would have struggled just as much, if not more, if we'd introduced that at the beginning. So it definitely doesn't hamper students' progress and they don't get confused between the two systems. So there you have it. Those are 4 common questions when it comes to teaching Kodály syllables. If you have further questions, please leave them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it about piano teaching and music teaching in general, you can hit the subscribe button to find out when a new video goes live.